Good evening, Oriole Nation. This is Dr. Mabino. We're going to start it here with a referendum informational meeting. It is 10:10:22, so we'll be started very shortly. Thank you. All right, we'll get started here. Keep with our time. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody who can come out. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to us and our community, and hopefully we can answer and share some more information about this referendum as we're moving forward and committing to the future. My name is Dr. Mabino. I am new superintendent for North Fond du Lac School District. It's been a great 2 months and really been the right place, right time for me and for my family. So we've had a great start to the school year, and now we get to look forward to some other opportunities here as we're going to share with you this evening. Okay. Again, at your tables, there are some note cards. You can write down any questions that you have throughout the presentation, and then we'll come back to those at the end. When we're done and completed with the actual presentation, we'll answer some of those questions, but also we will take a tour or two to show you some different locations in the building so you can see what some of those things are like if you so choose. All right? So we're going to get started here with some introductions. We are very fortunate to be partnered with several different players within our community as well. And those players are going to actually introduce themselves and just hear a little bit about Bray Architects, C.D. Smith, and Baird are all part of this process. And it takes a lot of people to make these things happen. So we look for other partners to help us as we move along with this journey. So I'm going to turn it over to the different people here tonight that are going to be sharing a little bit about some different elements of the referendum. And I'll start out with.
Well, I'm Clint Sally with Bray Architects. I was very fortunate to work on the previous project with Friendship, some of the work here at Horace Mann as well as Bessie Allen back in 2016, Aaron. Right. So again, very happy to be back here leading the process early on here through the study phase, and then again helping the district with communications leading to the referendum. Sorry. It was a long weekend in a lacrosse tournament. I'm quite caught up on my sleep. I'm Mike Clark with Baird. We've worked with the district for many years on debt-related capital planning, but any debt-related transactions the district made to, whether it be new money or refinancings. And we prepared some of the estimates in terms of the cost estimates, and I'm going to talk about the projected tax impact, interest rate environment, anything about the borrowing.
Good evening, Dave Merton, Senior Project Manager with C.D. Smith Construction. Like Clint said from Bray, I was fortunate to be involved in the construction of the last project with Friendship, and then some work here, and then also at the Early Learning Center. So looking forward to working with the team on this referendum, and hopefully a great project coming up here in the near future.
I'm Tricia Mullenbach with C.D. Smith Construction, along with Dave, helping support the district on budgets and schedules and the communications campaign.
Great, thank you. Can everybody hear okay? I just want to make sure. Can everyone hear? Okay, perfect. So moving on here, these are some highlights from the historic lens of North Fond du Lac School District. There's a project in 1999 where we expanded and renovated the middle school and high school and built an auditorium. As if you've been so lucky to be in there, Pete was just taking me through just a few minutes ago, sharing all the different components and amazing things that are going on within that arena. Project 2, in 2018, expanded and renovated Friendship Learning Center, secured entrance to middle school, high school, and maintenance improvements at Early Learning Center in the middle school and high school. And I don't know if you've been into Friendship Learning. I would hope that you could walk through there if you haven't been so far, but amazing project, amazing opportunity for our kids, a lot of amazing learning happenings because of the spatial of what's going on within that arena. So a lot to be thankful for within this district. One of the big notes here is from 2017 to 2027, we're growing as a district. And we're expected to have over 300 students, a 23% increase within that time frame. which is a key component of this process and the reason why we're here. So some of the major challenges we'll walk through here, operational maintenance, to keep our programs going and our support going and our classrooms and our learning and everything else that make it happen. We will be talking about that challenge within our arena, and then the two other components, the middle school and high school capacity. We're busting at the seams here, and it's a good chance for us to look at how we can best keep our buildings safe and also expand further learning within our schools. So over the next 3 years, we have an estimated budget shortfall of over $800,000 each year. That's significant in the world of education, as many of you might or might not know, within the funding that how we run school funding as well. We don't have a lot of revenue, and the revenue all goes back into our staffing and helping and assisting, make sure we have the appropriate staff and high quality staff within our arena. And there's a couple different things that we have also some amazing programs here that are happening every single day for our kids and for our community. These things don't happen without, investment and funding in our organization. We also have, a world that we're living in that inflation is going, much higher than what we can stay with from the school's perspective and the school's end and the state funding that we're receiving. We have to stay competitive with all local school districts to try to keep our teachers, our good teachers, our solid teachers that are here every day for our kids in these walls in this district. The other thing too is we also have competing ventures right around us in our community. Wages have gone up for several different areas, from fast food to your Menards working store. You're making 18, 17 bucks an hour. It's a little bit easier to go off that. So we're competing with a lot of different industries within that. We're also trying to make sure that we keep our class sizes and everything else within our learning great. And finally, just keeping our facilities up to par, roofs, other facility projects to make sure that we're just keeping up to date with what those are going on. From the middle school, this is a chart showing you the capacity issues that we have currently right now and how we're continuing to grow. By 2026, 2027, it's going to be around 416 students within that arena. Right now, we're at around between 374 and 432. And then with the bill and with the addition that we plan to make happen, we'll go from 414 to 40 for securing a little bit more space for safety and for learning for our kids. Horace Mann, capacity projected enrollment 2026-27, 510 students. The existing capacity is 406 to 447. We're already close to shooting over that. I know we're over with lockers already. I think we're at 465, so we don't even have enough lockers for our kids right now because we're already making that happen as far as meeting those needs and those numbers within our arena. And then the proposed building capacity is 538 to 591 within that growth expansion. So looking at proposed solutions, I'm gonna have Clint talk in just a second here, but the two questions are gonna be on the ballot, and maybe you have seen these, maybe you have not. But the first question is operational, and it basically says, limit is specified to section 12 or 129 or 121.91 Wisconsin statutes by $800,000 per year for 2022-23 school year through the 24-25 school year for non-recurring purposes consisting of operational and maintenance expenses, including to maintain class sizes, current programs and services, and to operate additional space. That is question number one. Okay, I'll go over the solutions right now.
This is the solutions for the operational question.
So again, as Matt said, we're addressing a lot of issues with programs and services, optimizing class sizes, keeping those down, as he said, and then attracting our great quality staff. Question two, do I get to read this one? All right, so question two, this is as it will show up on the ballot. Shall the School District of North Fond du Lac, County, Wisconsin be authorized to issue pursuant to Chapter 67 of the Wisconsin Statutes General Obligation Bonds in the amount not to exceed $18,500,000 for the public purpose of paying the cost of a school building and facility improvement projects consisting of construction of additions, including for classrooms and labs, renovations and building infrastructure improvements at Bessie Allen Middle School, construction of additions, including for classrooms, cafeteria, and physical education space renovations and site improvements at Horace Mann High School, renovations, building infrastructure, removal of an older portion of the building, safety and site improvements at the Early Learning Center, and site improvements at Trefford Way Charter School, and the acquisition of furnishings, fixtures, and equipment. So I'll try to go into a little bit more detail on that. Again, sort of the two, I'll say smaller, if you will, projects that we're looking at, again, is at the Early Learning Center and Trefford Way. Again, this at the Early Learning Center, that'll include removing the oldest section of the building. That's the gym portion. If you're on the outside, it's kind of the stone-looking section of the building. Replacing the roof at that building, and then updating the site where we will remove that building with playground and parking space for use for the facility. And then additionally, site work at Trefford Way, again, to update the parking lots at that location. Bessie Allen Middle School, again, this is one of the buildings, as Matt said, where we need to increase capacity. What's actually interesting is when we did do the last project, we did explore some of the needs, both for the Bessie Allen and Horace Mann in terms of future growth, because at the time when we did Friendship, it was really about, again, updating that building and making sure that we had the growth we knew was coming at the elementary level. We're starting to see that growth now, obviously, at the middle and high school level as well. So a big component of this, and it's not going to show up on there, but a big component on this is adding some additions. So the 3 orange boxes that you see down there would be classroom additions for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Part of the goal would be to take some of the collaborative learning spaces we created at the elementary school and bring those to the middle school as well, so that the students have more modern learning environments and a more collaborative environment to learn in. The other thing, and again, when you take the tours today, those buildings, the Bessie Allen really hasn't been updated in probably since it was originally built, especially in the science labs and stuff, and originally built as a high school. Again, they work well for middle school students, but providing, again, a more specialized, specific spaces for the middle school students. The areas in the kind of the green color or aqua color then would be renovation, again, to update the existing classrooms, make sure they're appropriate size classrooms, again, to correspond to the additions. And then the number 2 and 3 up above, and the number 2 would be updating the family and consumer ed spaces. That was called home ec when I went to high school. Again, there's a really change in philosophy there. There's a lot more commercial applications and culinary specialties taking place in those classrooms. So updating those areas. And then the number 3 would be renovating the classrooms for some special needs students and special ed students. Moving on to the high school, we're really looking at several different additions here as well. The first one kind of affects the room we're in right now. As we're seeing growth, one of the needs is just to have more cafeteria space, more seating space. One of the interesting things when we look at how class schedules are developed for schools is they usually have to start with the number of mouths they can feed for any given lunch period. So as we add more and more kids to the building, we're really restricting the flexibility of the schedule building for the school. So the goal is to expand the cafeteria, add additional seating, and then also create designated space. You'll see back there that the cafeteria equipment right now is out kind of in place as where it is in a day-to-day basis. That obviously takes up some space, room from seating. It also kind of causes, when lunch periods are done, there's a period of time where they have to clean that area up, and it's kind of off limits. So we would create kind of a serving kitchen area that would be a designated area. We can close the doors, and kitchen staff can do their work behind closed doors before the kids eat and after kids eat. The number 1 that you see on there would be an expansion off of the classroom wing of the building. Again, that would be a 2-story expansion, so basically adding 6 classrooms, again, as well as trying to add some collaborative learning space as well for students in that area of the building. And then the number 3 would be to expand and renovate the fitness and weights area. So on the lower level, we would build an addition, and then on the upper level, we'd actually expand out over some of the existing one-story portion of the building to expand the wrestling space above there. We just wanted to point this out because within the community survey that went out, there were some additional projects that were listed on there. And again, we're very thankful for the community for taking the time to take the referendum. But at this time, the results that we received on the survey didn't show support for some of the additional projects that we had listed. So we just wanted to make sure people knew and understand that even though those items were listed on the survey, they are not included in this referendum. So there was some improvements called out at the Oriole Athletic Complex, not included, some additional work on the HVAC within this building that's not on it. We did look at some renovations to the Bessie Allen cafeteria. Again, when you take the tour, there is some tiered seating within there. The idea was to remove that out, again, to expand the cafeteria seating. But as it currently exists, that this does still function in the mold of some degree of collaboration and growing. So we felt again that one could come off, and then there was also a plan for a greenhouse at the high school here, which we took off as well. I will turn this over to Dave.
One slide.
One slide.
Okay, the investment, kind of following up on what Clint had talked about, the different scopes of work for the different areas. Obviously, question 1 is this, the $800,000 maintenance for the next 3 years. Question 2 then is the high-level breakdown of the construction cost. A couple things to keep in mind. We were very, I'd say, conservative when we looked at putting these prices together. It's obviously a kind of volatile market out there. It's been the last couple of years since COVID. Price in market, fuel prices, it's been all over the board. So we were conservative approach, knowing that this project would go probably later 23 and into 24. So high level, a breakdown of the costs. Trefford Way, as Clint said, that's mainly this little bit of site work over there for $300,000. Over at the Early Learning Center is $1.4 million. And then here at Bessie Allen Middle School, budget at $9.1 million, and then Horace Mann High School, $7.7 million. So again, kind of a high level breakdown of the $18.5 million there.
This slide is a chart of tax exempt interest rates. It's not actual interest rates. An index is used in the marketplace as far as municipal tax exempt issuers kind of tracking to see where rates are. Again, the district is able to issue debt on a tax exempt basis, which results in a lower interest cost. But I wanted to include this just because interest rates have increased. Up in the corner, you can see the 1-year chart from August 21 to August 22, and you can see how rates have increased. And, as you're probably all aware, that rates have increased, and that's good from an investor standpoint, but from a borrowing standpoint, it does lead to higher costs. For the estimates for the referendum, we've used even higher interest rates. So our assumptions are conservative. We're about 75 basis points higher than what actual rates are today, just to build in a cushion. And then from a historical perspective, you can still see the rates are pretty attractive. I used to work for the Appleton School District many years ago, and for North High School, we were borrowing right about here, right there at the very tip almost. So rates are still attractive when you look at it from that standpoint. They're not as low as they were, a year ago. But again, all that's taken into account when we look at the projections and this would impact question 2, the debt question. The operating question is just cash. There's no borrowing component to that. You just hit exit there. Thank you. So as far as the tax impact, we have a historical chart of the district's tax rate. Again, the tax rate is how many dollars per $1,000 of valuation. So in 2017, it was $10.27, $10.10, $10.21, $9.64, $9.20, $9.20, and the projection for fiscal year 22-23 is that the total tax rate is projected. Not all the information's in yet. Valuation's in, but let's get rid of this chart. But state aid is not out yet. It comes out on October 15th. That's another component to determine that. But again, it's projected to drop. And then within that, you'd have question 1 and question 2, as far as the impact, the yellow and the orange. Question 1 being 32 cents for the operating question, and then 43 cents, the orange, for the debt question, 18.5 million. A couple of things to keep in mind is the operating question is for 3 years. After a 3-year period of time, that authority of $800,000 a year goes to zero, unless the district would come back to the voters and get that amount or different amount approved. So we're just that 3-year window, and then it goes away without getting additional approval. The debt question, we anticipate repayment using the full term, and Wisconsin bonds can be out for 20 years. At this point, we anticipate for a bond issue, there may be 2 separate issues, depending on the project schedule. They'd be repaid over a 20-year period of time. Once that debt is paid, that levy authority goes to zero. It cannot be reused for any other purpose. It's just to pay that debt specifically tied to that authorization. Once that debt is completely paid off, that levy authority goes back to zero. But you can see even with those, the district is quite a bit below where the tax rate was the previous year. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, the last state budget focused the dollars on state aid. State aid offsets district's tax levy. So the state's paying for more. And the focus there was to control or bring down property taxes. So it's been successful from that standpoint. There were no new dollars for operating purposes in that state budget. Typically, dollars would come in 1 or 2 forms to districts, either through the revenue limit formula or there's a per pupil categorical. There were no new dollars added, and those are the dollars the districts use for operations, which is probably another reason why the operational question, we're seeing more and more districts go to the voters to get approval for operating, just because the last state budget really didn't provide any additional dollars for those purposes. So again, even with those, you're seeing a overall tax rate decline. But, it's not a free referendum. There's a cost to those questions, and those are shown up there again. The 32 cents for the operating and 43 cents for the debt. Here's a chart showing the same thing, putting them on a monthly basis. And again, we use conservative assumptions for these estimates. Now, the operating is pretty straightforward. It's $800,000 divided by the property value of the district. And it comes out to 32 cents. And then on the debt, since it's over a longer period of time, I talked about the interest rates. We're using conservative interest rates, but also future property valuations go into that calculation. We have this year's as a known number, came out October 1st. For future years, we're only using property value growth of 1% a year, which is well below what's happening. And you probably have a better idea than I do in terms of what's happening within your district with growth, home building, people moving in, things like that, we think 1% is again, pretty conservative. On the website, the district's website, there's a online tax calculator. You can put in and again, when you you should put in your fair market value, not your assessed value, because again, school districts levies are, to determine those, school districts are required to use equalized valuations, the number provided by the Department of Revenue, which should mirror the more current market value. It takes out where maybe municipalities are in their cycles as far as reassessment. So you put the fair market value into that calculator, and that will show you what the projected tax impact is for each of those questions based on that number. Keep in mind that last year's property tax bill, the one you have in your possession now, is last year's valuation. So valuations are up around the state. So depending on what your ultimate valuation is, that would may cause that number to be slightly different, but this will give you a good indication of what the tax impact will be.
Yeah, just FYI, so I don't know if you live in the village, you saw that our assessments all went up, so I went on and used that property calculator. We were at the village last week Monday. The average home went up 33%. So when you see that number drop down, that was because now it's spread out over meant much more money in different areas. So when I put in my calculator in my home, you type in what your new assessment is, which is very close to what Mike was talking about, and that's where you'll see the impact. So it works pretty slick. So when you go online, it's pretty slick, and it takes into consideration this impact based on our new assessed values. That if you're in the village, you got that thing that showed how much your house went up. One of the reasons that mill rate went down is because all of our houses went up. So instead of paying on $9, just FYI, it's still relative to what the costs are. Just because of the reassessment, that's kind of made things look a little different.
Yeah, and when municipalities go through a reassessment, the goal of that is to get nearer to market value, which is the equalized number that the Department of Revenue provides school districts. So if you have a recent assessment value, that would be a good number, probably a better number than your fair market value off of last year's tax bill to get a good indication of what the impact is. And the other thing I want to mention as far as assessment, just because you're reassessed does not mean your taxes are going up. The variable within that is what percentage of the tax base were you before the reassessment. So if you were 1% of the tax base before the reassessment, you got 1% of the levy. After the reassessment, if you're 1% of the tax base, you get 1% of the levy. So it's what happens to you relative to everyone else really is the factor. Just higher assessments does not automatically equate to higher tax bills. It depends on what happens to everybody else. Now, if your assessment goes up 50% and everybody else, Steve, goes up 1%, well, congratulations, but you are part of that is you would see a higher tax bill in that case. So it really depends on how you vary compared to everybody else in the community. So anyway, this is on the district's website.
Real quick, just walking through the timeline, should the referendum pass, this is for question 2, the capital piece, just to give you an idea of when you can expect to see a construction project happen. So if it passes in November, the design phase would begin immediately, and that design phase would go through about August of next year. And the reason that takes so long is because Bray does a great job, including the district. I think what Clint has showed you is clear that it's not fully designed yet. There's still a lot of input needed from the district, from staff members using those spaces, and then also sharing that with the community throughout that process. So you'll see more on the design through that phase. And then project bidding about September of next year. CD Smith is the construction manager, but it's still a competitively bid project. So we go out to bid for things, all trades, even if we're able to self-perform. Those bids go directly to the district, so it's very competitive, getting the best price. Contractor procurement for about 3 months, so that's really going through all of the bids, making sure we have the best qualified bidders for the best price, and that we're looking at doing the project at the right time. And then looking to start about spring of 2024, and then construction completed before school would start in the 25-26 school year. And I'll turn it over to Matt to close.
All right, thank you. That concludes our presentation at this point in time, and I just want to share a couple different things for you. We are going to have another 2 meetings on the 19th and 27th, same place, location. We'll probably try to find a classroom too, so you get a little bit more sound for you all to hear a little bit better. But yes, we'll have that. Also, if you want to learn more about the referendum, you can go right to our North Fond du Lac School District, and you look under district, and then under referendum, it'll have all this information as well as like frequently asked questions. Everything that you saw in here, the presentation is right there for everybody to see and check out if you have more questions about that, including the tax calculator that Mike talked about before and Aaron also mentioned is available for you as well. This is obviously, education is the foundation of our community. We have such an awesome responsibility that we get to work with the most precious commodity in our country every single day. And what we invest and how we support as a community, it only makes us better and stronger as a whole community goes. We have some amazing opportunity to continue to invest and support our schools and to continue to make North Fond du Lac this amazing place to be. So I appreciate you all coming out here tonight to be part of this. We're going to take a couple minutes for some questions. If people have questions or if people have written down questions, we can answer anything else that you might have. And then in about 5-10 minutes, we'll take a tour if you want to go, and we'll walk around the building a little bit to see some of those other things. So if anybody has any questions, I'm going to play Phil Donahue in just a second here. I'll walk around with the mic if you want to ask some questions for the group.
My question is $800,000 a year? Maintenance, is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
What happens after 3 years?
After 3 years of the 800,000?
Just from a legal standpoint, that authority goes to zero. It's only good for the period that's approved by the voters. If the district would want to renew that or another amount, they'd have to go back to the voters.
All right, there's a couple really interesting elements in there. With school funding, increasing enrollment's great. But what happens is we get funded at a third as you going forward. So if we have 40 new students, let's say 45 new students this year, we only get to get funded for 15 of them. So as we go forward, we're educating more kids with less revenue. Now, let's put that right now, it's continuing to increase enrollment. And then the next part is this thing called an election coming up in November. We're not really sure, as was said earlier, a lot of the new monies in education went to poverty, it went into equalized aid. So we've had no new money to spend. So this current budget this year, there's no increase in the amount of money that the district can spend, but yet we have 5.7% increase in transportation costs. For the first time ever, we're looking at being over budget in our energies, in our utilities. So a lot of it's going to depend on how the state will either put more pupil aid in or will allow for revenue caps to increase so we can levy that locally. So the idea is, right now, we know this year we're looking at about an $800,000 deficit. We also project moving forward the best you can. It's like nailing Jello to a wall because we really don't know what they're going to decide for what the next biennial budget is. But the idea is that this would be a 3-year referendum that would help us bridge that gap. And then depending on how funding looks like moving forward, as this was developed, there wasn't an idea that this would be a continual come back at 3 years, say we need it again. We're hoping, I know hope's not a good plan, but we see some things that could line up to help
stabilize funding for public education with the next biennial budget, and then also with us looking at our 3-year rolling enrollment that can also help us go forward. So to your point, it's looking for the next 3 years, but with the idea that hopefully, as time goes on, we look at what different investments are in public education from the state, that it won't be a continual thing. That helps. Well, and if and hopefully. Well, they would have to come back to the taxpayers if after 3 years, and so that's what the district is trying to do, and I could speak for the 13 years the superintendent is trying to be as fiscally responsive as we can, and we know that things cost resources. And we also know, as Matt had said earlier, we're no longer competing with our hourly wage employees. We're no longer competing with other school districts. We're competing with Walmart, with Quick Trip, with all those, and they can raise the revenue however they like it. We do have an opportunity, and this is the neatest thing about a referendum, is that our community gets to decide what it wants for our schools. And that's what this is all about, and that's what this planning is. So will there be some impact? Also, how much that's going to be with the reassessment. We have a TID coming off with Agnesia and Aurora, so that's more money coming in also to help offset costs. But there definitely will be costs, but the idea and the planning from looking at how we've gone forward is that this is for 3 years and then looking to proactively do things in order to make it not have to be more than that.
Thanks, Aaron. Steve, do you have a question or similar?
Just a clarification, I'm just wondering with the tax collector calculator, if that's just the school portion of the tax bill that everybody receives, or will it calculate the total tax bill?
A good question. The tax calculator just calculates the impact of the referendum questions. Questions 1 and 2 are separate. It does not calculate your overall tax bill or even the school district's overall tax levy. It's just the referendum questions.
The question is, does the capital piece kick in this first year? And the answer is?
No, the operating referendum would start in 22, 23, the current year. The debt, because the long-term debt won't be most likely issued until after the first of the year. And now the first impact of that will be the 23, 24 school year. So it'll be in your December 23 property tax.
Other questions?
Students coming from the school from others, how many is that? And why can't we just stop taking students?
The question was about open enrollment, and one of the things, and I'll have Aaron jump in on this too if he wants to, but we have a certain capital we stop at, but at the same time, our residents incoming has grown. It's not the open enrollment numbers that are really driving this whole thing up. It is people within who have moved into North Fond du Lac that's really making that capacity grow. Again, yes, no. So, okay, so open enrollment. So the reality of it is open enrollment, we realize that money right away. It's about $8,000 for a regular education student, $12,000 for a special ed student, okay? So currently right now in January, the board will set the limits for how many people come in open enrollment. Our district benefits, those kids are not taking any seats from our kids, and currently right now, many of our different levels are already shut down. We're not accepting very many new open enrolled students. So that's already been taken into consideration. And that money that we get from those schools for open enrollment has a huge positive impact on our overall well-being as a district, not a negative. But the open enrollment has already been capped. So what we're looking at is as we go forward, it's very limited to where it goes in. And as these schools, the more enrollment we get, then we're gonna see more opportunities to share the amount of that it costs too. So we have about a positive open enrollment of about, I'd say around 200. I don't know if that's right around there, 190, 200. Oh, sorry, 150 now. So it's because some have moved in that were open enrolled, so I'm out of loop a little bit there. So we actually have more FTE, which is a good thing. We used to be at negative 40 in 2006, and we were losing $300,000 to other schools we had to pay because their kids were going out.
Only open enrollment. The other ones are all, when we look at a formula for figuring out what our levy can be. The only open enrollment, when we have increased full-time equivalents that live here, remember it's a 3-year rolling average. So it's not, we don't realize full levy authority until every 3 years and go forward. Now, that's helpful when schools are decreasing. So then they don't get to hit as much because you don't like lose all your kids from second grade. So the reason that when we look at open enrollment versus full-time equivalency or FT or resident students is that that's one of the reasons why we start to see our costs up, because we have more kids coming in, but we don't realize the ability to raise money for them in real time because of the 3-year rolling average. Which was easy.
Other questions we have? If you didn't feel like asking a question, we can still write questions down on the note cards today before leaving. Again, we'll offer a quick tour throughout the building so you can kind of check that out in the next 5 minutes. But I so thank you all for being here. Thank our partners for being here tonight and sharing this information. Again, you can continue to get information from our website as well as come to another informational setting in the 19th and the 27th. But we really appreciate you being out here learning more about this. If you have questions, you can also feel free to contact me or other individuals in this group as we move forward. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you all and have a great night. See you, Oriole Nation.